babies in your diapers. Welcome to The Tiberius Show with your host, Tiberius Boy.
That's me, Tiberius. Today, we are going to talk about some very awesome stuff. We have a cool video game to talk about, a great book about food trucks, a mobile and score report, and we're going to totally awesome guests. The one, the only, Mr. Barbara Webb.
Wow, I feel like I'm on the Johnny Carson show. Alrighty.
Barbara was an anchor news reporter for WFTV Channel 9 Eyewitness News and now raises money for the nonprofits. Thanks for being on the show.
It's my pleasure, Tiberius. I've heard about your great success with this show for quite a long time, and I've just been dying to be on. Thank you for finally inviting me to be here.
You're welcome. Today, we are going to start off with the video game of the week, and this is going to be an interesting one.
And now it's time for the video game of the week.
Today's video game is Transistor. This game is considered an epic game because it is available on the Epic Gaming System. It was made by Supergiant Games. According to Supergiant, Transistor is a sci-fi themed action RPG that invites you to wield an extraordinary weapon of unknown origin as you fight through a stunning futuristic city. Transistor seamlessly integrates thoughtful, strategic planning into a fast-paced action experience, melding responsive gameplay and rich atmospheric storytelling. During the course of the adventure, you will piece together the Transistor's mysteries as you pursue its former owners. So RPGs or role-playing games are very different than the games I normally play. It has a long story and you get to add your character and get better over time as you defeat larger and larger bad guys. I enjoyed the story and it was cool that the story gets to talk to you to the entire game. I like the deep voice as a sword as you run around the world. The bad robots, well, not so much. They are very hard to defeat, and you can lose your abilities when they hurt you. I had earned a new ability, and when the robot hit me, I lost the ability. It made me very, very unhappy. The game is slow in most areas, and then gets very fast when you are in a fight. I like the game, but really don't like that when you get hurt, you lose some of your abilities. I give Transistor 7 out of 10 stars because I love the fast-paced fighting and the cool story, but I really don't like that it's very hard to advance and you lose the abilities that you have to work so hard to gain. If you are ever injured at work or in a car accident, you should call my friend Chuck. Wait, you are not Chuck?
My dad can help when people get hurt. He loves to help people. You can call him at 407-801-2667.
cwsmithlaw.com. That website again is cwsmithlaw.com.
Does it actually have that much W's?
Over 40 years, Lighthouse Central Florida has provided education, independent life skills, and job training to thousands of Central Floridians who live with blindness or any degree of vision loss. Whether it's picking out clothes in the morning or just moving around your community and serving Orange, Seminole, and Osceola counties. Contact Lighthouse Central Florida at 407-898-2483 or visit them online at lighthousecfl.org.
And now we're all ready for the book of the week.
The Tunnel Twins and the Food Truck Fiasco. In fact, this book is written by Connor Boyack. Let me read you the back of the book. In fact, Barbara, would you do the honor?
Of course I can. The oldest economic battle is repeating itself. Disruptive businesses must fight against their crony competitors, the ones with friends in government, who try and protect them from innovative upstarts. Ethan and Emily Tuttle witnessed this battle firsthand with their food truck friends as they embark on a campaign to win public support and overturn the laws that shut them down. Incorporating key concepts from the classic Economics in One Lesson by Henry Hazlitt, this book helps young readers learn about business, regulations, economics, protectionism, competition, and other basic market principles. Learn alongside the Tuttle Twins how government harms the economy and what one person or two can do about it.
So first off, this is not an AR book. You don't get any points for reading it. But it is a Tuttle Twins book. And you know I always learn something new when I read one of these books with my dad. This one is a big story about running a business and having to follow the rules. See, the Tuttle Twins have a lemonade stand and they sell it to people on the road. Their friend Amy has a food truck and with some very tasty pizza and some noodles. But when they went to the football game, they noticed that Amy had her truck up for sale. Then they asked Amy why, and she explained there were lots of new rules made by the city council that made it hard for her to make any money with her truck. Amy showed them a list of rules called the regulations. They asked the other food truck owners about them. A lot of food truck owners said the rules were made to help the local restaurant owner, Bob, who had a barbecue and was a friend of the mayor. See, it costs less money to run a food truck because you don't have to have a big building. For rules that only help Bob's barbecue and hurt the food trucks is called protectionism. So the twins decided to set up a protest and go to the next council meeting to explain why the law was unfair. They called reporters, and they were very interested that 2 9-year-olds were going to protest the law, so they showed up for the meeting as well. During the public comment period of the meeting, many of the food truck owners explained why the laws were unfair. One owner said that the regulation that said he could not sell his food lower than the other restaurants was unfair and reduces competition. The owner of Bang Bang Noodles said their daughters liked to help in the truck, and the new regulation said only adults were allowed to be inside. It was cool to see how the twins helped spread the news and talk to reporters. There's more, but you have to read the book to find out what happened. I give the Tuttle Twins the Food Truck Fiasco 9 out of 10 stars because it was cool to see that the twins find a real problem and trying to find a way to solve it. I know I am learning to run my own business and be fair to others. I think that all kids that want to run their own business should read this book. The Tiberius Show would like to thank one of our awesome sponsors, SlutChannelUS.com. These guys are very, very cool. They bring 21st century surface drainage solutions to reality. They can do corporate and government work. These are the guys that make roads and bridges safe in the rain. You can see all about them at SlutChannelUS.com. That website again is SlutChannelUS.com. The Tiberius Show would like to thank one of our dedicated sponsors, Custom Designs Orlando. These guys are on Mills Avenue and do all sorts of stuff, ranging from photo ID badges, engraved signs, custom Braille ADA signs, vinyl lettering, to trophies and awards. They can ship products all over the United States. You can reach them at 407-898-0373. Now it's time for the interview of an interesting person. Today's going to be so much fun. Today we have the one, the only, the amazing Mrs. Barbara Webb!
Ooh, that was fun. I like those big introductions. Thank you, Tiberius.
You are welcome. Barbara was the health reporter and news anchor at WFTV Channel 9 Eyewitness News, and now raises money for the nonprofits.
I do, indeed.
Mm-hmm. And you also did the reporting before I was born.
Yeah, you don't have to remind me of that, Tiberius, but it was long before you were born, yes.
Long. So first off, how are you enjoying being on the show?
I'm enjoying it very much. You're fun to watch.
So what is the best part about being a reporter?
You know what I loved about being a reporter is I loved learning about different things. Every single story, I had to go out and learn something about that story. And so I would find the right people to talk to who were the real experts in that particular area that I was going to be covering that day. And I'd go out and I'd have the chance to ask them questions. And so I was always curious. I was always learning something. And the other thing that I loved about it is when that story aired, I could see the results of my work for the day. It was like an artist putting together a work of art. That's really how I...
putting together a puzzle.
Yes, like putting together a puzzle or like writing something that has meaning and significance for the viewers and the listeners. That was important to me. So I loved seeing the results of my work, and I loved it. I loved it when people called me and said, thank you for telling me about that particular health issue and where I could get answers for it. You know, what doctor I might be able to see, what treatments there were, because I didn't realize those things were available right here in Central Florida. So thank you.
When you were a kid, what did you want to do when you grew up? Did you always know you were going to be a reporter on TV?
You know, I was always fascinated with television. When I was your age, TV wasn't anything like it is today. And I was always wondering, how do they create that magic in the box? How's that happening? And I was just fascinated with the whole concept of there being some place that wasn't in my home, that was some kind of a studio where people went and then they were able to record this and put this on camera and have these shows and these newscasts. And I was always fascinated with it. And then I kind of forgot my dream, if you will, that fascination. I went away to college and I decided I'd be a teacher like my mother. Okay. And I began taking some courses that were mandatory in college, though, in journalism. And I fell in love with it then. And I decided this is really what I want to be. But you know what? I was living in Vermont. There weren't a lot of TV jobs in Vermont. So even though I wanted to be this, I wasn't sure I could because there were too few jobs in Vermont. And I loved living where I lived and I didn't want to move. And so it became kind of like a struggle for me for many years, wanting to do something but not doing it because of the lack of opportunity. And finally, and I want to tell you this because this is important, finally I had to make a big decision. What was I willing to sacrifice in order to follow my dream? And one of the things I had to sacrifice was I had to move. I had to leave my beautiful home in Vermont and move to some place where I could actually get started in broadcasting. And I never looked back. I've been very happy because I pursued that dream for very, very many years, long before you were ever born.
Wow. Was there anything you learned from that job that helped you as an anchor?
You know, anchoring and reporting are in many ways very different, and they share some similarities. You have to be able to speak well. You have to have a pleasant voice. You have to be understandable. If you're going to anchor or report, you have to look okay. You don't have to look great, but you have to look okay. And you have to realize that you can't be distracting, that you can't get in the way of your own message as far as your overall look and your sound are concerned, because what's important is the message that you're relaying. That's how they're similar. Anchors receive information and then they get to rewrite some scripts and things like that. They primarily stay in the newsroom and then in the studio delivering the news. Reporters get to go out to the scene of where the news is happening. And that's so very exciting because you get to go find out what's going on in that very, very moment. And you get to then to decide, how is this story going to go? What is the most important part of the story that I want to convey to the audience? So reporters kind of own their stories even more than anchors, unless there's breaking news. And it's happening while the anchor is right there on the air. And then that can be very exciting because the anchor is really controlling that, the way that news flows and such, receiving information from producers and interviewing people live in the field and such. And so that's when the anchor becomes like the reporter, when there's breaking news.
Okay, so I had Raquel Ozza on here a few weeks ago, and she does the traffic. What made you decide to be a medical reporter?
I didn't decide. My boss decided for me. I had come to Channel 9 many, many years ago, and I was a general assignment reporter and a weekend news anchor. And I was sent out on a story about a gentleman who was a dwarf. He was a very tiny person, and he was having leg lengthening surgery. And this was unheard of at this time, that you could actually lengthen a person's legs. And so a very special orthopedic surgeon was doing this surgery, and it was several surgeries that this person was going to go through. And I went out and I interviewed the gentleman who was having the surgery, and I interviewed the doctor, and we got all the video that we needed to get and such. And I came back and I put that story on the air, and my boss liked it so much. He called me into his office and he said, I really like the way you do these medical stories. And I said, I've done one. And he says, yeah, I need a medical reporter. I need a health reporter. And one thing that you get is that all news is about people. And all health stories are about people. And as long as you tell those stories that way and not bore people, then you will be successful. So I said, well, I'm going to give it a try. And the more I did, the more I loved it, because it was every day a new day, something new to discover.
Okay, my dad says that you should raise money for the nonprofits. What's the best part about doing that?
I will tell you, Tiberius, that when I was a journalist, when I was a reporter and a news anchor, and as a health reporter, I was called often by organizations all over Central Florida to come host their event. Whether it was the Cancer Society, the Heart Association, diabetes, whatever the disease of the day was, they were having special fundraising events. And because as a health reporter, I was very visible in that area, and they knew me, they would ask me to come and MC their events. And I really enjoyed doing that. And then they asked me, could I do more? Could I help them with their fundraising? Could I help them with their auctions at the events? Well, I didn't know how to be an auctioneer. But one night at the very last minute when the auctioneer couldn't show up, my husband was there in the audience, and literally we drafted him with about 30 seconds notice. And he got up on stage, and he did such a great job at it that we became a team. We became like hosts and MCs of events and fundraisers. And so we became very popular, and I found that I was living for my weekends when I could raise money for people rather than sitting there at the anchor desk telling viewers, oh, it's terrible out there today. There was another car accident, and then there was another shooting, and then there's this political scandal and that. And it was every day of the week I was saying, ain't it awful, ain't it awful, ain't it awful, and I wasn't able to change society. So I discovered on weekends I can do that. I can help change the world, one organization, one charity, one nonprofit, one organization at a time, by helping them raise funds so that they can do good in the community. So I love that. And that's what drives me. And eventually, after many years of volunteering to do this, it was just time to say, go follow your dream now, your new dream. And that is to go change the world, one organization, one community at a time. Make the world a better place by fundraising for organizations that are providing needed services in their communities.
Okay. So what is the coolest event you ever got to go to?
Oh my goodness, the coolest event that I have ever been to, I have to tell you, probably was when we were in Las Vegas. Wade and I were hosting an event in Las Vegas for the Las Vegas Ballet, and there were huge stars in the audience. America's Got Talent. Remember Paula Abdul and Simon Cowell and Randy and all the others? Well, they were all there, and we got to meet them. They were all watching us. They were watching Wade and me on stage. Just a whole lot of other people, a lot of comedians, professional Las Vegas level comedians were there, and Wade and I were the ones on stage, and that was very, very, very cool too. In fact, we looked at each other before the curtain opened and said, can you believe this? Can you believe we're here and raising money for this organization with all of these people in the audience? It was fabulous. Wow, was right.
Okay. So if my listeners wanted to grow up being a TV anchor, wait. Okay. Well, I want to be a reporter when I grow up. So, what advice would you give me?
All right, so if you're going to go to school then to learn to do this, just don't learn to write. You need to learn about history. You need to learn about political science. You need to be a student of English. That's really important. You need to speak good grammatical English. You need to have good diction. You need to be disciplined. And you need to understand that if you're going to join the media, Tiberius, it's like being in the Marines. It means total dedication. When a story happens, you have to be there. It doesn't matter if it happens at 2 a.m. or at 2 p.m. You have to be there. And so they own you. I don't know if you can understand this, but literally, they own your schedule. They own you. And if you're not there when they need you to be there and delivering the goods that they need you to deliver, you're not helping them. So that's one of the things that I really need to advise you. It's not a glamorous job. It's a hard work job. You go out on stories and you're going to sweat plenty in the state of Florida in the summertime on stories, but you got to go do it. You have to be willing to put up with a whole lot in order to be a reporter or to be a news anchor. You have to be there when they want you to be there. A lot of people have this misconception that all people do is they go in and some makeup artist powders them down and everything's going to be fun. Then they just go on, they just talk. There's so much work that goes into this before you ever say your first word on the air. And you have to be willing to do that work.
Is there anything else you think my listeners should know about you?
That people should know about me? That I think you're the greatest, and I'm very proud of you. You're getting a very, very important education at a very early age, and you're quite remarkable, Tiberius. You come from a remarkable family as well, and I know that they help you be able to do this. But what you're doing is a very pioneering thing, and I want you to know I'm both impressed and proud of you.
Thanks.
You're welcome. That's why the American Fundraising Foundation, by the way, is helping to sponsor your show. That's the organization that I represent. My husband and I founded this as a result of all the things that I was telling you earlier, and we use our foundation then to support charities and nonprofits all across the country. We support about several hundred every year, and we're growing tremendously because the kind of support that we offer is what charities need so very much these days.
Do you have a website or Facebook for my listeners that want to follow you?
The American Fundraising Foundation website is amfund.org. That's amfund.org.
Thank you so much, Barbara, for being my special guest. Can you stick around for Math Corners?
Sure.
Mid-State Fire has been providing top-quality fire equipment services for 3 generations to the Central Florida area. Don't wait for an emergency to repair. Call Mid-State Fire today at 407-246-8855. Get your fire extinguishers and emergency lighting for both your home and businesses by visiting www.midstatefire.com. That number again is 407-246-8855. The Tiberius Show would like to thank Boggy Creek Airboat Adventures for being one of our sponsors. I got to go on an airboat and saw a real gator. I even got to go to the gem mine and mine for some gems. We ate a steak dinner at the restaurant and even got some gator rights. If you want to have a blast with the entire family, I suggest you go to www.bcairboats.com right now. Get your tickets today. The website again is bcairboats.com. Oak Ridge Gun Range is a family-oriented shooting range that has been in business for over 30 years. They specialize in basic firearm training and offer numerous services such as consignments, gun trades, gunsmithing, and concealed weapon classes. I even got my training for gun safety at Oak Ridge Gun Range. Great customer service, and firearm safety is what they do best. So find out more at oakridgegunrange.com.
Get ready, it's time for the Bowling Score Report.
This week I'm at the Boardwalk Bowling and I got to play with Izzy. My scores were 86-99 and a 102. She beat me on the first game, but I rallied and took the lead with the other 2 games. I got to meet a new coach and he was nice. If you want to go bowling with me, be sure to join with the new summer league at Boardwalk Bowling Monday nights at 6:30 in the evening, bro.
Tiberius' favorite subject, it's Math Corners.
Thank you so much Barbara, for having me as Math Corners. Today we're going to talk about perimeter. Perimeter is defined as the distance around a two-dimensional shape. So to find the perimeter of a shape, you have to know a few things. For a rectangle, you need to know the length and the height. Then you just add them together and times it by 2. But what about the other shapes? A regular polygon, you just need to know the size of one side and times that by the number of sides. So a regular pentagon with 3-unit side would have a 3 times 5 sides equals 15 units perimeter. When you get into odd shapes like a quadrilateral, you have to know the size of each of the sides or edges of the shape so you can get the perimeter. Now, a few weeks ago, we did the area of a circle. Remember, we talked about pi. Well, guess what? If you want to know the perimeter of a circle, we get to use pi again. See, my dad told me that the perimeter is radius times 2 times pi. So if we use the 3-grid circle from a few shows ago, we have the radius of 1.5. And 1.5 times 2 is 3, the same size as the grid. And 3 times pi, or 3.14159, is 9.42477. And you can round it to 9.42 units. I like perimeter because it makes you look all around the shape and make sure you don't miss any edges. And I like the circle one because we get to use pi again. So Barbara, do you now know all about the perimeter?
I do, from listening to you and from my high school geometry class.
That's a funny one. Thank you so much, Barbara, for your help with Math Corners.
It was a pleasure, Tiberius.
And now it's time for Heart of a Lion. We, the Tiberius Show, like living with the heart of a lion. Living with the heart of a lion stands for leadership, integrity, obedience, and nobility.
This week we are going to talk about nobility. For me, I think nobility is remembering we are God's special possessions and acting in a noble way, showing courage and honor. And the qualities of nobility are goodness, virtue, honor, generosity, and selflessness. So last week I did my final reporting with the Orlando Seawolves. So I asked the players, what was that one question that I never asked, and they thought I should have. Gordy Gerson said that he never asked why he missed goals or anything negative. He thought that was very noble of me. I watched the videos of Dan Rather to have good questions that were very positive because my dad said being a reporter was a noble profession and that Dan Rather was very good at it. So Barbara, did you see our nobility on all this week?
Did I see an example of nobility at all this week? Yeah, I think I can tell you that I did. There's a lady who works with us at the American Fundraising Foundation. She's got a really important position. She's a senior vice president and our chief operating officer. And every day I'm discovering more and more about her because she is patient, she is a strong leader, and she's noble in that she cares about other people. And she recognizes when people make mistakes that they shouldn't be heavily criticized, but helped not to make that mistake again. So I think just as you didn't ask the embarrassing question of that player, I think she was noble to say, let's see how we can correct this problem so that together it won't happen again. I think that's a noble thing to do.
And that's our show, folks. I want to thank the one, the only Barbara West for being my special guest this week. It has been a pleasure talking with you today. And I hope I get to visit Channel 9 and see all their cool sets.
That would be great. You'd be very much invited to come over to Channel 9 and see their sets, too. That needs to happen soon. Get Raquel Asa to invite you to do that.
And be sure to listen to us next week on the Tiberius Show with their host, Tiberius!
The Tiberius Show is not filmed in front of a live studio audience. Executive producer, Joseph Boyd. Production editor, Pierre Laguerre. Green Room manager, Danny Boyd. Broadcast associate, James Smith. And your program host, Tiberius Boy. The Tiberius Show is copyright 2018.